Right, thank you very much. We are now on session 6 of the PR Power Hours, the final session. And I just really appreciate everybody who's been able to come to these live and watch them back on the replays. So today I just want to talk about sort of turning your ideas into impact, what you need to do for that. And just really, if you had an hour, I'm going to suggest how you might break it up to start doing PR for your business. So an hour max. This isn't a long presentation today, so there'll be plenty of time for Q&As at the end for those who are here live. If you're watching on replay and you have a question, drop me an email, get in touch via LinkedIn, and I'll happily help you with that. As always, you will get some homework, some steps you can take right now, and I will obviously talk about ways that you can work with me. So, what we've covered so far, we talked in the first session that visibility starts with strategy. You need a plan. Planning is everything for me. Stories that sell. How do you bring this to life? I was delivering press release training this morning, and press releases, they're a means to an end. There's a structure to them. They're fine. But how do you bring that story and that press release to life? Who can speak to it for you? Who have you helped? What change have you made for somebody or in the wider community? How do you bring that story to life? Building your profile with purpose, we've covered that. We talked about reputation management. Really, really important to understand potential impacts. If something's going wrong, if you're experiencing a crisis, maybe somebody in your company has done something and they shouldn't, how do you manage the fallout from that? So I'd really encourage you to give some thought to that. And protecting your reputation. I've got that in twice. Anyway, sorry, do apologize for that. Talking about me. So again, been really great to get to know some of you over the last sort of 6 weeks. So I'm a PR consultant and trainer. I do take on occasional clients, but I deliver a lot of training. And I also have my press community aimed at small business owners. So in terms of training, how to write a press release, crisis communications, public affairs strategies, developing your public relations plan. And again, I've done some really bespoke training as well, like how to write policy briefs, how to do some internal communications, understand your internal audiences as well. And I just really enjoy doing it because I've all the tools over the past 25 years that I just want to share with the people who need it. And again, if you hang out with me, not just today, but maybe through LinkedIn, or maybe we'll catch up in the future. Do you know, I really, I do genuinely want to help you raise your profile and manage your reputation, whether for an organization, large or small, or on a personal basis. And again, it's about ensuring that you're consistent and strategic and really maximizing the opportunities to get visible, including in the media. Media relations is one aspect of PR, which I absolutely love doing, but it's not everything. This is why we need to look at the planning, the reputation management, and everything else, understanding your audience that come before that. And in terms of consistency, I mean, there's no point in doing some PR this week and then nothing for 6 months. It's how do you get that sustainable and consistent and get a rhythm going so that you can really, raise your profile consistently over time. And it's really then about building authority. It's how you show up regularly and use the right message. Again, how you stay consistent is important. You don't want to do too much too soon and then burn yourself out. So showing up once a week for a year is better than showing up 6 times this week, nothing for a week, a couple of times the following week. So again, that consistency is important. And really it's about building that know, like, and trust factor with your audience. And I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. They'd done a search for PR trainers. They came across my LinkedIn profile and they were able to look at the consistent posting I've been doing over the last number of years. And that's built up their knowledge of me. Then we've met, and that's really enhanced the know, like, and trust factor between us both. So consistency is everything. And again, having worked with, hundreds of leaders, founders, business owners, spokespeople, a lot of their PR fails when they don't have that plan or they don't have the structure that they need to follow, or there's too much noise. And by noise, I just don't mean the wind today. I mean, think of all the socials you're following. Think of all the newsletters that come into your inbox. Think of all the emails, all the stuff that's going on. It's a noisy environment, and your story, your message has to really cut through all of that. But you need a plan and a structure to make that happen. Trying to be everywhere at every time also just leads to burnout. Um, you better to pick, one platform and do it really, really well, and then move on to another one. And again, overwhelmed and where to start. Some of the conversations I was having this morning in the press release training, again, new people into the role don't know where to start. People who've been doing it for a while, but again, where do they start building relationships with different types of journalists? So again, it happens everywhere. And obviously, I can help you fix a lot of this. So, in terms of your PR per hour, what I suggest is you can try and commit to 1 hour per week. And again, I'm going to break that down for you and build that sort of simple rhythm that's repeatable, sustainable, and effective. That is really going to compound how you show up and compound your reputation, that know, like, and trust factor. What I'm going to show you today follows the press pathway, and that is a pathway that takes you step by step of how to raise your profile. And it could be your personal profile or the profile of your organization. And it's about plan, reach, engage, story, and shine. So how to plan, what is you're doing, how to reach your target audiences, how to engage with them, how do you build those relationships, how to bring your story to life. And by shine, I mean once you've got all the underpinning work done, you have that confidence to move forward and start to, pitch to speak, get on the podcast, do that BBC broadcast, speak to that journalist. So again, what I'm going to show you is aligned to these pillars and just designed then to move you forward every single week. So if you have your first 5 minutes, you might want to think about planning. You could be perhaps revisiting your visibility goals. If you remember about the planning module, plans are everything. You need to set your objectives and what you want to achieve through your visibility actions. So you might need to revisit those every now and again. You might want to set your focus for the week. What is that one thing that you can do this week to raise your profile? It could be a pitch, it could be a social media post, it could be picking up the phone to a journalist. One thing, what could you focus on this week? It's all about getting that clarity first and then action second. So planning is everything. I will just keep saying this. Planning is everything. And the number of larger organizations that I've gone into that don't have a plan it's quite, is it shocking though? It is quite shocking. Because you think, you see the comms coming out, you think it looks all very well put together, and it is because the teams work really, really hard. But you need to have that underlying plan with it. I mean, don't take my word for it. So this is my friend, my colleague Nuala, gave me this testimonial. These are all on my LinkedIn profile, by the way. And she just said, "Be warned: if you don't have a plan, you will have one before work commences." So when we've talked about running events, I've come in to help support some events that she's done, and she's told me what she wants, and I've gone, "Well, that's very nice." And I have turned it into a plan that is sustainable, that we can follow, that's got KPIs in it, it's got the timelines in it, and then everybody knows what they're doing, and it all comes together less haphazardly. So that's your first 5 minutes. Then your next 10 minutes you could spend on the reach element. So identify where your audience is. Where do they hang out? What do they listen to? What magazines do they read? What podcasts do they listen to? What social platforms are they on? Have you got an e-newsletter list? You might want to refresh your media list. Again, you can use a service that a platform like Cision or Vulio, that they have all the journalists on it. You just upload your press release, it pings out to them. If you have the budget for that, that's terrific. You might want to look a bit closer to home at who are the local journalists that you could be engaging with. So whether you're in Northern Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, wherever in the world, who is within your area of expertise that you need to be contacting. I was doing an exercise yesterday. I was looking for forward feature lists for a range of magazines. It's been a year since I've done this. And again, I'm getting the bounce backs because people move on. So as I go along, I am refreshing my media list. Again, you might want to spend 10 minutes researching a journalist or a media outlet. This is the good stuff. This is where you go and buy a magazine and have a cup of tea and read it at the same time. And again, you might want to spend 10 minutes just spotting opportunities. So reading the paper, looking at the news headlines, what is going on in the world at the minute that you could align to. There's a storm at the minute. Have you any commentary to add to that? Has your business been affected? What can you say to move that conversation on? And I think above all, it's really stop waiting for the journalists to come to you, for your audience to come to you. How do you start then to reach out to them? And again, this is what I did with Great Big Green Week last year. We had a plan, we knew what we wanted to achieve. I had to actively go out and reach out to the journalists. I had to research them. I looked at the publications, decided who would be a good contact for that, and then got their contact details. And then I pitched to them directly. So again, it's basic, but it works and it's effective. And I think there is a danger that we all jump to the shiny tactics and forget about the basics that are really your foundational piece. Your next 10 minutes is all about engaging. So, again, could you spend 10 minutes, no more, don't go down the wormhole of commenting intentionally on LinkedIn, on people aligned to you or connected? Maybe you want to move roles, so you're maybe looking at other roles out there and other companies. How can you engage intentionally on LinkedIn? And comments are doing better on LinkedIn than putting posts up. So, if you're posting regularly and you're monitoring your stats, so you should all be monitoring your stats and socials, you will see that LinkedIn impressions and engagements have really gone down over the past year or so. But comments are getting a lot more views potentially, and you will see that in your metrics as well. So spend some time commenting. Or maybe you want to connect with some journalists. So you've done your research, you know who you want to talk to. Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Twitter? Do you need to go on to the publication itself and start getting their email addresses and maybe just sending them a short pitch? Maybe you're inviting them to something, connect up with them. Again, you could be joining industry conversations. Again, it depends what's relevant for your organization and what you're trying to achieve. And again, it's about building trust consistently. It's not about doing 10 comments today and none for the next year. Again, how can you just spend 10 minutes a day connecting, reaching out, and engaging on a daily basis? Visibility really does require your presence. So if you're sort of the best kept secret that nobody's ever heard of, then we need to kind of think of how we're going to overcome that and just give you the confidence then to start to raise your profile. And again, don't take my word for it. So when I started the Control School Support Council, we had nothing because it was a brand new organisation. So I then proactively went out to engage with journalists and politicians relevant to the education sector, working with the stories of the schools to highlight to them the needs and challenges that they were facing. So that was really important that we engaged directly with that particular audience. And again, your story, you could spend 10 minutes sometime this week doing that. Draft one story angle or message. If you're doing a press release, like 10 minutes, don't spend 10 hours on it because there's more important things. There's more fun things in life that we could be doing. But you could, start to draft that one story angle or message. You might want to capture a client win. You could reach out on LinkedIn and ask for a testimonial. You could look at your Google reviews. You could get those in and you could start to build out a story around that. That could then maybe go into a post. It could go into an e-newsletter out to clients. It could be a pitch to a journalist. If a client has come to you saying, oh no, we've saved, £1 million by implementing your new fancy system, that's a really good potential business story right there. So have a think about how these things then connect up into a story. And again, you know, bit of a challenge. Can you find a moment you can use this week? Is there, an awareness day coming up that you could do some social media around? Now, the media tend not to like those quite so much, but, is there an event happening this week in your organization? Is there, what are you celebrating? What successes are out there? Is there something that you could find this week that you could draft a story about, and potentially write a post or pitch a story on it? So your stories then are really all about connection and credibility, and we do have the previous module on that. And again, don't take my word for it. Naomi she had a story to tell. She'd won an award and didn't know where to start with her press release. So she got my instant access press release course. I let her have access to that, and she drafted a brilliant press release, got the coverage she deserved. And she's a virtual assistant company, Caliber, it's called. Really, really good. And again, she's now telling her story consistently about what she does. And then in your final 10 minutes, during the week or as part of your hours block, you can maybe update your media kit. So if a journalist calls you now, do you have the assets you need? Have you got a headshot? Have you got product shots if you're a product-based business? Have you got the information about that conference that you are running to hand? Because you want to be really quick if you are asked for it. Could you pitch to speak to a TED Talk, perhaps, to a local conference, maybe into a local business group? Again, you've maybe spent some time researching that on the reaching out phase. But again, you can craft a pitch and you can put yourself forward for that. Maybe you want to get those client testimonials. Have you got a system that allows you to do that? But again, those are really going to showcase what it is that you do. They're going to be endorsing what you do, which is always nice to hear. Or can you share something that builds authority? It could be a blog, it could be a platform piece in the media, it could be you tell me what would help you really, really shine, raise your profile, and get your profile raised. And it's really just about showing people who you are really clearly and confidently. And do you know, this is a skill that you learn how to do. There's no secret to it. It's just about knowing what it is you want to talk about, having that confidence, and practicing and preparing for the opportunity. It's not to say that your knees aren't knocking when you're up speaking in front of an audience. They absolutely are, but it's reframing those nerves as excitement. Again, Ellen has a fantastic podcast out, and when we met, she had no plan to promote it. So what we did was we just worked through step by step, what she wanted to achieve, who your audience was, what she wanted to, people to know about, and it's now really, really successful. So she was able to shine through sharing her work through her podcast. It's a really good listen now, I have to say. It's called Policy 360, and she spent a lot of time interviewing politicians in particular, as well as voluntary sector organisations about the difference that they're making and how to engage with them. So well worth a listen. So, time and capacity. None of us have any time. We're too busy doing all the other work that we're supposed to do. But what I want to try and get across is that you don't need hours and hours and hours to spend on this. Particularly as a small business owner, we're doing all the things. Or you're the lead in a bigger organisation on a particular issue. You've got your work to be doing. So, how do we break it down? You need consistency more than anything. So, can you block off 15 minutes a day to do some of the actions here? Or 30 minutes twice a week? There's an hour already. So, 15 minutes 4 times a day might be 60 minutes. But again, you see where I'm coming here. How do you break it down to be really manageable? What can you do over your tea break, for example, in the morning? If you've only got 15 minutes a week, that's okay as well. Just spend 5 minutes engaging, maybe 5 minutes developing a story, 5 minutes pitching to speak on podcasts. And those small actions all really, really compound. Tools make this a lot easier. And by that, I mean templates for press releases or podcast pitches. Can you create your podcast pitch doc in Canva, and then you have that to hand when you're spending time pitching out. I was listening to a podcast last night by Teresa Heath Waring. It was 8 steps on how to expand your audience. And she talked about podcasts. She said she spends 2 hours a week pitching out to podcasts. Again, you don't have 2 hours, but what tools have you got that could make that life or make that action a bit easier? Your talking points. If you're going on to the media tomorrow, have you got that bullet point list of things that you can confidently talk about in relation to that interview? If you are in a bigger organization, have you got the comms lead providing you with those at the time as well? Media lists, invest in creating one, create your own. And again, linked to that is your story bank, having your testimonials, your client wins, who you've helped, how you've helped them, have some really good case studies ready to go. And then when the journalist picks up the phone to you, you have that opportunity to pitch the story. It's all done and dusted. You've got the permissions ticked off. You're allowed to share that photograph. It has to be either anonymized or this person will actually speak. So again, you're going to want to double check, but you don't need to create it all from scratch. Add a visibility calendar, plan it out. Again, that's just about taking a forward look ahead as to what's going on in the world. What's happening. Well, obviously, it's Christmas is happening very soon. So maybe from January onwards, what is happening that you could connect into? Have you got a big conference or event coming up? Have you got a speaking gig? Has your organization got the launch of new product or service? So again, once you know those milestones, you can work backward from there to, plan your comms, reach out, research your journalists, engage with them, get the stories together. I'm repeating myself, but this is just the best way to make your visibility happen and to make sure it's consistent. So I've talked about the press pillars. So again, all those tools and templates are within Press. I share them very, very freely with the members. And again, don't take my word for it. This is Helen. We spent one of our accountability sessions the other Monday. She was writing press releases. She wrote a pitch to Radio Leeds, so she's going back onto there to talk. And we looked at what was coming up in the next sort of 90 days that she could pitch around. And being a first aid expert, clearly, Halloween, bonfire night, there's burns issues. Christmas, there's choking hazards. Coming into
Mm.
January, you've got mental health and well-being. So again, just mapping those out to give her a structure to follow. And same with Gail. Gail came into one of my webinars actually. This is even before she joined the membership, but followed the process, took action, reached out, secured a brilliant feature in a magazine, was invited in to judge for some business awards, secured a podcast appearance as well, just in half an hour after listening to that. She's just got on and she did it. So it's all about, as she said, action builds momentum and momentum creates opportunities. So your homework. Create your weekly power hour routine. You can spend hours on it, you spend an hour on it, you spend 2 hours on it, but you've got the proportions now of how much time to spend on each aspect. Commit to one PR priority, whether it's for this week, this month, the next quarter. And, linked to that, can you share one story or moment publicly? So if you're a part of a bigger organization, it could be something more personal to you. You might want to share a story on your LinkedIn, or maybe you want to create that media opportunity to tell the story of your business. If you're a smaller organization, maybe it's about telling the story of some clients that you've helped. Again, you tell me what it is you want to pitch. I will absolutely help you do that. But if you think back to plan, reach, engage, story, and shine, create that routine and just repeat and do it for a month, and you'll start then to feel the shift. And if I can help you in the future on that, I'd be more than happy to. Give me a wee shout. Even if you just want a wee cup of tea and a chat, I am always up for that. But again, I do a lot through bespoke mentoring and coaching, workshops, strategic planning, engaging with the media, crisis comms, public affairs, that type of thing. And there's some more information on Press there if you would like to learn about it. And just to give you an idea of the modules that are within Press, so plan is about overcoming your visibility barriers and setting your PR goals. So module 1 is about defining your version of visibility. There's a bit about mindset and that overcoming the what ifs. Module 2 is about mapping out your PR goals, because everything has to be tied back to what you're trying to achieve as a business. And module 3 is about creating your personalized press roadmap for you as a person or your organization. And then right through then to the shine phase, how to secure your first talk, feature, visibility win, how you stay visible and credible, and how you lead with authority. And these are, there'll be more modules added into these as we develop, and it's all available on the private hub. So back to your homework. Create your weekly power hour routine. Give us a shout if you need a hand with that. Commit to one PR priority as a business or as an individual, and share one story or a moment publicly. And if it's on socials, give me a wee tag, let me know what's there, and I will happily support it. So we're going to go in now to the Q&A. So just for those on watching the replay, thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, just drop me an email, hello@theprclub.co.uk, and I will happily help you with that. But right now, that is me done, and we're going to have our Q&A now for those who are here live. So thank you very much.